Democratic Senator Tammy Duckworth, who serves on the Armed Services Committee, is demanding a Senate hearing on the issue. She's a Purple Heart recipient for her combat tours in Iraq. Joining me now. Senator, I don't know what to say. Let me just ask you your reaction to all of that.
Well, I am disgusted, flabbergasted. I mean, the president's excuse of "I didn't know" is basically a confession of incompetence on his part. We now have reports from several different outlets that say that he was briefed on this months ago, and he continues to do nothing about it. I mean, our troops need their commander-in-chief to defend them, and in fact, he's done nothing of the sort and claims that he does not know. So either they briefed him and he doesn't remember, which shows that he's incompetent, or his own intelligence sources have had this information and didn't brief him, in which case he better be firing some people like the Secretary of Defense if they knew about this and did not brief him. In either case, he continues to put Russia's interests above the well-being of American troops, and that is absolutely not acceptable.
And isn't it the case that Russia has a different interest than we in the U.S. have about these negotiations with the Taliban? I mean, there are a number of reasons why they may not have pursued this aggressively or told the president or talked about responses to Russia, one of which is to try to preserve the very fragile Taliban peace negotiations that were even opposed by the Afghan government in Kabul. Another is the president's relationship with Vladimir Putin. I mean, there are a number of scenarios here.
There are a number of scenarios here, but remember that this is the same president who called for the Russians to interfere in our democratic elections, and they did. A bipartisan panel found that Russia did interfere in our 2016 election after the president called on them to do so. And we've seen evidence come out in various trials, Roger Stone, the rest, that there was a lot of interference by the Russians in our democracy. And now he's putting Russia's interest, Putin's interest, over that of American troops. I mean, he asked at the time that this was happening, and he was briefed on this months ago, he asked for the G7 meeting to be delayed so that Russia can be readmitted into the G7 after they were expelled for annexing Ukraine. So there's all sorts of problems here. Not the least of which that the commander-in-chief of the United States military is listening to the president, the head of a foreign adversary, and putting their interests above those of America.
There are congressional briefings, apparently, but I presume not by intel officials, because they have yet to brief the Gang of Eight, the people they're supposed to be briefing, if this really is an assessment in progress. But so far, the Democrats have not been invited to any of these briefings that we know of.
Well, I've certainly not been invited to any of the briefings. I will tell you that I've called for both the House Armed Services Committee, which I sit on, to hold a hearing on this, as well as a classified briefing for all of the members of the Armed Services Committee. If everything is above board and this didn't happen and all of that, then what's wrong with letting everybody who is on the committee to see it? And in fact, we should be looking at this, both the Intelligence Committee and the Armed Services Committee. We should be looking at this intelligence that our intelligence agencies are telling us is happening. Remember that we have American troops in harm's way right now, and we lost 4 Americans early this year. So we cannot afford to have a vacuum where the commander-in-chief of our military is continuing to listen and take the word of Vladimir Putin at the exact same time that he's being told that no, the Russians are actually putting a bounty on the heads of American servicemen and women. We need to be watching out for our men and women who are in uniform right now and making sure that we don't put them into harm's way, especially when it comes to some place where there's a bounty on their heads from a supposed friend, which is what President Trump has called Mr. Putin. This is not acceptable, and I'm going to get to the bottom of this.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.